Hello, and welcome to our Tween and Teen Fandom Kit demo with the Public Library of Brookline. My name is Robin, and I'm a teen librarian at the Brookline Village Library. This month I'm here to help show you how to make your own clay or shrink film jewelry. Is this your first Public Library of Brookline to Go program? Here's how it works. Each month, the library is offering new take-home program kits, complete with everything you need to follow along, and video or written instructions created by one of your local librarians. The best part? Absolutely no due dates. You can keep everything included in your kit. Visit BRKLIB.com to go for a full list of our current kit offerings. So in this kit, you should have an assortment of materials to make jewelry. You'll have polymer clay in different colors, and you will have a few clay tools that will let you cut and shape the clay. You will have various jewelry findings, including some eye hooks, which will let you attach your clay material to the jewelry earring holders and the key ring, which will let you make a charm. You will also get an assorted cutter, so this will help you cut your clay into different shapes. And then you'll also get some shrink film like this, with a rough side and a smooth side. The pencil should go on the rough side. And then you'll have a few colored pencils, and you can always use some of your own as well. And then some more jewelry findings like these earring hooks. You'll also need a pair of scissors and a hole punch, or you can use scissors to cut a hole. The hole punch tends to make it easier. Now, if you want to make shrink film jewelry, in this case you can use colored pencils and the shrink film. Now, in my case, I decided to trace a drawing that I liked already, and this is one option you can use. You can always find an illustration that you like, or print out something from the internet that you find fun, and then just print it out and cut it out so that you'll be able to fit it behind your shrink film. One thing to keep in mind is that the shrink film will shrink to about 1/3 the size of whatever your object is. So these may look like they're really large for a pair of earrings, but in fact they'll shrink pretty small. So remember that they will shrink, and that you'll want to take that into account as to how big a design that you draw. Now, of course, you can always draw whatever you like. You can just draw freehand, and many people do, and you get some really great objects that way. But for this case, I just decided to make some bubble tea earrings. If you are going to use a drawing on the back, I recommend taping it onto the back of the shrink film, just because that way it makes it easier to see what you're doing. Make sure to tape it onto the smooth side of the shrink film and color onto the rough side, because the rough side is where the color will last. Now, the one other thing to remember about coloring in with colored pencils onto the shrink film is that it won't look like it's coloring in that much. It's not like a piece of paper, so it looks very faded out when you're drawing onto it with colored pencils. But remember that because it shrinks, the color will actually be much more intense than it looks when it's this large. So the color will intensify, and you'll be able to see more of the pink or the white or the purple or whatever colors you decide to use. I also recommend starting with the lightest colors first. Don't do black first, because it'll start to bleed into your lighter colors, and you'll end up with these little streaks. So start with white, and in this case I'm going through pink, and then down on through to the other colors. If you're doing something from a drawing like this, or from a printout, then also keep in mind you don't have to do it exactly. You can, for example, in this case I wasn't going to do each little heart for the bubbles in the bubble tea. I decided to just make those bubbles like you would get in real tea. So you can adjust the drawing to whatever level you feel like you want to do for your object. Now I always recommend that once you're done, you peel the paper off the back if you're tracing it, and just make sure that it looks good to you once you've taken the paper off. And in this case I drew some circles around where the bubbles were going to be in the bubble tea to make sure that they stood out. They are colored in with brown, but I wanted to make sure it was recognizable as bubbles inside the bubble tea. And for my second one, I decided to actually reverse the colors, even though it's going to be the same shape. So it's a purple liquid inside and a pink straw. I just thought that might be fun for having slightly different earrings on each side. So the first thing to remember is that whenever you want to make something with shrink film, you need to cut out the hole that you're going to use to attach it before you put it in the oven and before you shrink it. It's very, very hard to get any sort of hole into the shrink film if you've already baked it. So in this case, I'm going to put a punch hole right above where the straw is to make an opening for it to hang on a pair of earrings. And we have a fairly small punch. This is not a regular paper punch. And if you need to get a little closer, you can always cut off some of the excess film to make sure that you're getting the hole in the right place so that it's consistent on both sides. And then you want to take your scissors and cut out the actual object. Now I'm going to leave a little space around the edge of my object just to give it a little bit of a border. You can cut right up to the edge if you want to. It depends on what you think looks best. There's no right or wrong way to do that. Once you're all set, then you want to shrink it. And to bake them, you want to fit them on your square of parchment. In this case, I had to tilt mine a little bit to make sure they all fit. And you're going to bake them at 300 degrees for about 2 to 3 minutes. It shouldn't take much longer than that. And as you can see when you watch the video, they curl up. Once they are fully heated up, they'll start to curl up and they'll look like they're going to stick to themselves, but they won't. And they will flatten out again as they are heated up more and more. They will curl up very quickly and then it'll slowly unfold again and start to flatten down. Now, if you need to flatten it more once they're done cooking, you can, but you have to be very careful. So I would just make sure that you give it the full 2 to 3 minutes to make sure that it's got that time to flatten out against once it's shrunk. And again, much like with the clay, these pieces will be very hot when they first come out of the oven. They can actually still be moved around if you need to. If they're not quite flat enough, you can do what I did here, which is take up the edge of the parchment and just fold it over and press them down a little bit to make sure they stay flat. But you do have to do that very fast. They will cool off pretty quickly and then you won't be able to bend them anymore. And then as you can see, they've shrunk down too, so they're much smaller than they were originally and the color is a lot brighter. And when you do the shrink film, like as you can see, there's a shiny side, which is where you didn't color, and then there's the more matte side where you did color. So you can choose which side you actually like to show if you want to put them on a pair of earrings. Thanks for making art with us this month. We'd love to see what you made this month, so if you'd like to share it with us, then you can use the hashtag BRKLISTOGO to share photos of your projects. The Tween and Teen Kit program is generously sponsored by the Friends of the Brookline Public Library and the Brookline Library Foundation.